Time, again, as I said this many times and very often, the least understood feature, power, force of our universe. What is important, the things we already knew or seem to have known are revisited, re-identified, the stories are retold, and our understanding is reformed to have an equally valid, alternative, yet plausible explanation for everything. I've chosen for this recording the venue to be the stairs of British Museum in central London. And the reason being, because the meaning, the purpose, the function of museums are changing fast. Recently, I had the opportunity to go back to Hungary, and I did. And Melinda was with me and kindly drove me around, so that enabled us to visit more than just one country. In fact, we've been to Belgium, France, Belgium, Germany, Austria, Slovenia, Hungary, and Croatia at the very same time, in the same string of journey. And it wasn't only the realization of where the boundaries and borders of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Habsburg Empire, used to be, because it's so distinct from dishes to buildings, the people, how they relate to things. It was just so obvious still, hundreds, well over a century after the collapse of the empire. So that helped me to understand certain invisible cultural forces are strong enough to persist even hundreds of years after an entity, let that be a way of governance, a way of relating to one another, a way of class or structuring or systematizing or organizing life, but it still will persist. What we must not do any longer, just to be aware of it and respect of that force, is that the persistence of beliefs that are no longer founded. I find beliefs, even in the cultural beliefs are time-bound, which means they have their own context within which they are valid. So let's revisit all the museums, because the meaning, the purpose, the function of any exhibition are changing. It's not the same as it used to be. So it's important that we do this job, even with things we saw already. So we went back to, again, as I mentioned, to Hungary, and in southern Hungary, southwest Hungary, we had this visit to the sites. One of them was a very, very, very determining battle against the Ottoman Empire back in 1526, and that occurred in southwest Hungary. Mohacs, and we went back to the site. Ever since I was there, about 40 years ago, there was a new site being built, and we had the most impossible, unlikely host at the site, which was a cat, who was a stray cat adopted by the workers of the site of the museum and escorted us around. But thanks to the European Union and thanks to the Schengen area, we could go back to various parts of the ex-Habsburg Empire without any trouble. Had a lunch in Osijek in Croatia and spend the morning in Hungary and in the afternoon again in Hungary and around the city of Pécs, where I was born 49 years ago. Pécs was truly a cosmopolitan town, which I did not know at the time. For a start, its name are different in the languages that are native to the place, such as Pécs in Croatian, Pécs in Hungarian, and Fünfkirchen in German. Things we already know, things we already seen, worth revisiting, worth re-understanding, so that way we can create an equally valid, plausible, and realistic narrative explanation either for our own past, how we related to things, understand it better, or for the present or for the future, how we're going to relate to things and relate to one another. There were many things in life, it appears to me, that were used as a compensation or a resilience method or strategy that covered up all the unnecessary pain and suffering because they gave us opportunities to lie to ourselves even more, saying it did worth it. However, they were just covering up a lot of unnecessary suffering. Human suffering and pain is part of human life experience, but not the one that comes from regretting things, or missed opportunities, or missed words, or missed care and compassion, or missed development, maturing, and growing up. More often than not, I seem to find that when there is a gap in someone's upbringing, there is an unmet need, let that be an experience of neglect or something similar, it is very often not just some kind of adaptation or temporary resilient technique or a complete ignorance of that area of intelligence, as it were, but time stops there. So there are a number of adults, I would say approximately 60-70% of the population in the UK these days, who have significant problems with emotional intelligence and growing up, yet they are at the age I am as well. And what we do, we blame ourselves, then we fight because we don't understand holistically ourselves and would not have a good look at ourselves. Do not fight shame, do not reject shame, do not ignore shame. Respect it, just enough to be able to take a breath and have another also plausible and valid explanation for things. Make sure assumptions are not presented as facts and opinions are not facts. Moreover, get to know ourselves better and dissociation better would help us not to pathologize what is normal behavior, because my feeling is, particularly when it comes to being female sex, means encountering lots of pathologization, therefore secrecy unnecessarily, and consequently stopping time in areas of intelligence, areas of development that later on will come back with a hefty price. That is disconnecting, hurting one another unnecessarily, regretting and ending up only existing without the ability to live. So experiencing pain for decades without being seen, heard, or even noticed. Mere existence without life, the ability to live, is an excruciating, painful experience. In my country, the turns of First and Second World War and my family's own history gave me enough inherited memory to warn people around me about these potential pitfalls. This is not a prediction, but the severity and the pattern I can see is enough for me to speak up. Hopefully, it will help. Moreover, I find a great deal of injustice towards kids, children, Englishmen and English women these days. That does not help. Let's understand it. Let's do not fight each other or do not retaliate from each other. We've got plenty to learn from African black men, colored men particularly, but colored people as well, about how oppression works. And moreover, immigrants like myself really, truly need to think about the gap between the values of their workplace, of their own values, let that be advertised, aspirational, clearly stated or not, and the actual lived experience of the culture, including the lived experience of the culture they cause to others, whether they are aware of it or not. Because that gap, causing so much loss, unnecessary suffering, regretting, pain, disconnection, and miscommunication. And don't forget, once again, this is not my idea, but I share the view: no therapy, idea, policy, ideology, approach, way of handling things worth it if that's disabling communication and not enabling it. Moreover, if that's disconnecting and not connecting or reconnecting one another. Good afternoon. This is 23rd of May 2023, and this is today's short message from the stairs of British Museum, the venue I've chosen because museums are now pivotal for us to learn and for us to understand ourselves better. And moreover, to leave behind a world, in my case, to my nieces, my brother's daughters, both of them, Ingrid and Laura, in which it is worth trying to live at least once. Good afternoon.